All right, so this is the Shrink Think modules that we have.
Yes, time to orient us.
Couples.
Orient the couples.
So that's the subject.
We will be doing the orientation of the couples to the therapeutic process.
Exactly. Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think podcast. I'm trying to use like different intonation. Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think podcast.
Let's stop there.
I need to work on it sounding more natural because you're like, and turning it off. I don't know why this episode didn't get any listens beyond 10 seconds.
Because they did not want to listen all the whole for the rest of the time.
Exactly. And if you're just listening, you have to watch the video. Go to our YouTube channel and watch the video of Nathan saying that. Because it was good. It's worth it. Yeah. Well, okay, so we are going to talk today about couples counseling. We actually, many of you may know that this is the Shrink Think podcast. If you don't, how in the world did you find us?
Right.
Shrink Think podcast. Somebody else put it in
your
your
that sounds good. Beep.
You were like at work and you found your phone and what's this? Somebody put in Shrink Think podcast. Okay, I guess I'll listen.
I think that actually has happened to some people.
Probably. And you know what? If it hasn't, if you're one of those people, try it out. Grab somebody's phone, search up the Shrink Think podcast, and just subscribe on their phone. Please.
They'll love you for it.
Exactly.
Probably not true. Then listen to our episode on remorse.
Exactly. So I'm bringing up the Shrink Think podcast because we also have this service, this other company that's called Shrink Think, right? shrinkthink.com/podcast. But Shrink Think is our educational video. Like, what do I need to know going in? And I think you said originally, which I really liked, it's like, yeah, this is why we need to talk about it. It's not just one person multiplied or copied and pasted and it's like, okay, just do that twice.
Right.
It's a lot more complex.
Individual counseling times 2.
It is not that. So this is actually, if you're a listener and you're just a client, maybe you're going to couples counseling or considering going, absolutely this is for you. And if you're a therapist listening, this is absolutely for you as well, because these are things that if you haven't done couples counseling before, these are things that are great for you to know. Or if you have done it, then maybe these are good reminders of things that maybe you've forgotten, or just maybe it's just validation for things that you're already doing.
Right. So the biggest there's a substantial difference as a therapist between couples counseling and individual counseling. And there's most therapists, and I tell clients about this when they go like, hey, I think I'm going to go to couples counseling. Do you have a recommendation? And I'm like, I do have a couple, but the reality is there's a couple of key differences right up the bat.
A couple of key differences with couples counseling.
Well, I see what I did there.
Nice.
Kind of. Anyway, one of those is that a lot of therapists are very intimidated by couples counseling. They don't want to do it. So it really is a niche because because therapists come like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to have more than one person in the room. I don't know what to do with that. And then on the other side, there's this little thing called insurance, which is widely, there is a debate, I think, in therapy land around how to bill, what to bill, and all that kind of. There is a specific way to do it. We don't necessarily need to get into all that, but that's the other side of the coin.
Yeah, and just the bottom line, I think, with insurance is insurance does not cover couples counseling. Insurance, like if you have a relationship and you're like, we have relationship issues and we want to bill for their relationship or whatever, insurance does not typically cover that specifically. But if you're trying to go, and bring your partner in to deal with some other issues, you can definitely talk to a therapist about it. We're not going to get into the nuances of it, but that's just kind of the bottom line that everyone needs to know is you can't bill for relationship counseling.
Right. Think of it like this too, is if you can bill because you got a broken leg, it's your broken leg. You can't bill because your family's stressed out about the broken leg.
Right.
Like, can we have a lot of stress in our family, so we would like that to be paid for by the broken leg insurance? Like,
Right.
no. Like, so anyway, like what I just wanted to clarify the relationship component.
Mhm.
They have to do specific issues, but with couples counseling as a therapist, it is different work. You are way more active. So therapists, for example, that like to do triage, they have worked maybe in an emergency situation, working with psychological issues that are on the fly. Those therapists, if they haven't considered it, I would say like you probably would dig couples counseling, because it like popcorns around quite a bit. I mean, you are managing a lot that's in the room.
And that's what you're used to doing in the ER or those urgent care situations.
Right. And on the other side, some therapists, there is a more full perspective with couples counseling. It's interesting because when you get to where you're the couples counselor and then these people have two individual counselors, and those individual counselors are calling you and saying like, well, this really needs to happen because of blah, blah, blah. And you're in your mind going like, okay, well, number one, first of all, you do have to get permission from your entire couple, like from both people, to talk to one person's individual therapist, because there's no way you can have that conversation. Actually, it can be done, but it's difficult.
Yeah, because essentially what you're doing is like if your client is, if we're talking about like Bill and Sally here, and we're going to talk to Bill's individual therapist, you can't release Sally's private information or anything that Sally has said in the session without Sally's permission, even though you're talking about Bill's individual therapy, right?
It can be entirely different. I'll give you one example. So a lot. This doesn't happen in every single. I don't do couples counseling the same way all the time. I just don't do it that way, like at some kind of program or whatever. But so sometimes I'll bring one person in for like one or two sessions, or what will happen is a person will come in. They will want couples counseling, and they will say, okay, I want to see if this is going to work or not. And I'm like, I will tell them that's fine, but I can't see you more than a couple times without this other person coming in, because it's no longer going to work. They're going to think that you and I are in cahoots, and now we got a big thing against them. And
because there's this whole like alliance, therapeutic alliance balance that we're trying to I guess hold at all times. If you have too much contact experience, whatever, too many sessions with one person, that gets imbalanced towards that one person. And it's not necessarily that we as the couples counselors are on anybody's side. It's not like we're intentionally choosing that. We just have had more experience with that person. We know you better and we have more comfort, right? Because we've worked together more, and that is going to be felt.
Right. And in my example, the first person that comes in is the husband. And
no, never. That doesn't happen. Sorry,
That's
an unrealistic example.
Well, in this situation,
I just am so concerned about my marriage. My wife doesn't want to come to counseling. I really want to work on us because I believe in our relationship.
Well, that's true. But you've had this happen where the wife did find me in this scenario, but it was never going to work unless the husband felt like it was okay and get on board. So he basically went like, okay, I'll go first, because if he was going to be the X factor.
Right.
So he gets on, he's explaining stuff, and as he's explaining things and how the different emotionalities going on, I actually came to the conclusion after the second time I met with him, I'm like, man, his wife actually might have borderline personality disorder. Like in my mind, be there. But after a while, it came to basically what she's a person who wears all her emotions on her sleeve, and like she's just out there with everything, and it's just a personality thing. It had nothing to do with anything other than just being her personality.
It's not a personality disorder thing.
Right.
It's just a personality.
Right.
That's
thing.
it.
And she only has one, which is good.
Not a multiple personality thing.
Right. So I give the example because I'm telling you, if you haven't done couples counseling and then you, one of the things that can happen is when you see that separation and they come in, it's like you are like it hurts your brain because like everything that you thought is not happening all of a sudden.
Well, okay, and I'll just give this another little flavor of an example. You and I have actually worked with, I think maybe just one, if not a couple of clients where you were seeing one individual, I was seeing the other individual, and then we came together, the four of us, because they each wanted their individual therapist to be in the session, to be like, hey, my partner is like, triggering me, and I need your help to help me when I'm interacting with this person. And I will never forget. It's like you see one version of the person, right, individually, and then the partner is in the room, and all of a sudden you're looking at a completely different person. You're like, whoa, the partner just brings out a completely different side of this individual that you thought you knew that is just very, very different, that you just don't see, and they don't see it. They might know that they're like a little bit, activated, or we get into, more heated than I normally would or whatever. But it's like, if you're that individual person in the relationship, it's like you can't see objectively, you can't see outside yourself, and then you can't describe what that is like. But if you're the couples counselor, you're seeing it and you're like, wow, okay, this is very different. So I think this is what you're referring to, is that couples can be very different from the individual sessions.
I will do couples counseling. When I say this, I mean triage in situations where I've worked with the individual for a long time and they have like some major blow up. Like usually it's like an affair or something like that. I have to bring him on just for one. I just need like to be able to say these things. I can't do it without you, can't do it by myself. He's not going to listen, whatever. So this happened. I'd been working with a person for years, knew this person super well. And
you thought you knew.
Yeah, and very reflective, super mental health forward, very understanding of themselves. You challenge them, they're like, yep, I totally do that. This person gets on the phone, and it was like somebody went, game on. And it was like, right. What? I mean, they went off. They're like, and it turned into this whole melee. And I'm sitting there going, wait, I don't even know who you are. Right. It was, so the reason I'm bringing all this up is because couples counseling is not individual times two.
And this is why you're saying you need to be more active or be more directive, because that kind of stuff can go down. And it's not necessarily like, you don't want that to happen, right? If you're the couples counselor, your job is to maintain a sense of safety in the room for everybody. Everybody like share what they need to share, but also like safe feeling what they feel. And if there are these like melee attacks or things are getting out of hand, it's your job to step in and say, okay, hold on, time out, which does happen, right? Couples can get into it, or somebody can start just really like jabbing at the other person. You're like, okay, this is not okay.
Yeah, I've sent people out of the room.
Exactly. If you cannot continue to communicate, in a respectful way towards your partner, then we need to break this up and you need to get out of the room. And then we need to talk about how to do this, how to do this moving forward in a way that can be safe for everybody. Right. So you've got this job as a couples counselor that's, when an individual comes in the room, obviously ready to do that. Because here's the other thing that with couples counseling, is that you're not just looking at the individual times two, right? You're looking at two individuals and the dynamic between them. And so as a couples counselor, or if you're part of the couple, the counselor is looking at each person, like, okay, what are you trying to say? What might you be feeling? What is it that you're trying to get from, like, what's your emotional need going on here? And then they're trying to assess that for both partners, but then they're also looking and observing at how the other person is responding to those bids, right? And that's a whole like dynamic that's not just about the one individual.
It's the other side of that where I think some of what you're going, at least you set me up like T-ball, is we're also trying to consider whether or not the other person can receive what it is that they're saying. Like, so it might be frustrating for you as a client sometimes thinking like, why can't I just say whatever this happens to be? Because your therapist is resisting that a little bit. And the resistance is probably, and I would say only, coming from the perspective of your partner probably is not in a place to be able to receive that yet. There's more work to be done in order for you to actually be heard.
Yeah, and so it may, if you were the person that's speaking, you might have the experience where you're trying to talk, but you're like being stopped or stifled or shut down by the therapist, the couples counselor, because like what you're saying, Nate, is like, maybe your partner can't receive it. And if you keep going, I always like to say, like, you can't convince somebody of something they don't want to be convinced about. But if you continue to try to convince them, it's just going to push them away and cause them to shut down more. And so your couples counselor may actually be stopping that before it gets, too late.
Yeah. And there are situations like with my own stuff, I'll tell people, I literally said stuff that the one person will understand and the other person won't care. Like, or we'll say something like, I understand where you're going right now. And it's important. It's an important place to be. And I agree with you. It needs to come out of there. You need to say it. And it's probably, I'm going to need you to be more patient. It's like the microphone came down out of the ceiling and it was like, let's get ready to rumble. And I'm like, wait, no, we're not doing the game here. And you have to step in. And I think a lot of therapists do understand that kind of being that assertive and confident does matter. And if you're a therapist with a lot of imposter syndrome, you're not going to want to do couples counseling.
It's going to feel like you're just completely exposed, right?
Right.
These people are going at it and they know that I'm not capable. And in a certain sense, that's kind of what's happening. It doesn't mean you're not capable. It just means you're not stepping into that confidence, right?
Yeah. And it does. Yeah. So I would say this on a simplicity scale, though, just from like both the therapists and both also the couples, is that in reality, you're really just looking at a very potentially superficial dynamic. If you can actually just make a difference in communication, where communication happens, and you really, even if you just slow things down,
which it needs to happen a lot in couples counseling.
It's a huge component in teaching that type of way to communicate. A lot happens in couples counseling very quickly that does not happen in individual therapy, which is why a lot of you couples counselors dig it. And those couple counselors that are true blue are like, man, individual therapy just takes too long and it's not exciting. Couples counseling is like, boom, we get stuff done. So that's kind of why it's kind of it was super interesting and different.
Yeah, so a couple things I want to kind of expand on just as we close out the episode here. You said like you need to slow things down in couples counseling. On the one hand, it is very exciting because it is very dynamic. There's a lot happening. One person says one thing and the other person can immediately have a big reaction or have a response that has all kinds of history that's going to it. And then the first person can then respond again and you're like, whoa. And this is just like in a matter of seconds, right? So in a sense, a lot can happen, but you need to be directive in the sense that when you're slowing it down, you might have to say, wait, what do you mean when you say that? or you said this and your partner responded this way. What did you hear them say? Right? This is just literally one little exchange that you might need to slow down. And that can feel frustrating if you're the couple, but it's because you've just sort of taken for then you're against each other, looking to us, the couples counselor, to sort of solve your problems. And again, there might need to be some structure that gets put in place there, some kind of parsing through stuff. But ultimately, it's your relationship, and you two need to work on communicating with each other, responding to each other, because when you're at home and you're talking to each other, there ain't no therapist there, right? I mean, I've tried to figure out a way to be on call so I can, be in your ear.
Well, that's easy. Just get a phone number.
Like those spy, sort of movies or whatever. But it's not going to happen. You need to be able to know how to speak for yourself to your partner when you're activated.
Okay, one unabashed plug. I know we're running a little short on time. I do want to say that there's a couple times where couples therapy is probably not for you, and the biggest one is domestic violence.
Right.
If you have active domestic violence in the relationship, couples therapy is not where you are going. You are going to individual therapy. And for couples counselors out there, counselors that maybe don't think themselves as couples counselors, but they see couples, go to shrinkthink.com. Unabashed plug. I believe, did a great job orienting couples with our videos to therapy. We do a lot for you so your couple is ready to come in and get to work, and they understand what couples therapy is, way more than what we've talked about today.
Oh yeah, we took everything we talked about in this 20 minutes and we expanded it into an hour, multiple videos, multiple different modules about it.
Yeah, I am really proud of it, honestly.
Yeah, it's super helpful.
So with that, little campers, nighty night. Have a great day.
Sweet. Okay, that's great.
The video is, what is going on?
Glitching out. I don't know. I can't tell. The batteries seem like they're okay. I mean, it's 2%, 9%.
Do we need to reset the entire thing? And do you need to call Casey right now?
Yeah, I'm gonna have 18 minutes, so that's good.